You got an open rebellion. You got the governor of a state, Walz, just basically saying, we're not only not obeying immigration law, stated law passed by Congress, but we're not going to protect the federal agents assigned to enforce the federal law. So Minnesota state police and local police are not even going to protect you. Has there ever been a more disgraceful governor? Maybe down south, George Wallace. That's Walz. He writes an article in a Wall Street Journal today saying, oh, no, you got it all wrong. You got it all wrong. No. We cooperate with ICE. That is a lie. That governor has ordered his police to stand down and not protect federal agents. If Minnesota authorities stood shoulder to shoulder with federal authorities, no one would be dead. And the legitimate protests, and they are legitimate. You don't like ICE? Okay. But those protesters would be protected. But no, Walz won't do it. Now, I'm not even going to bother with Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis. I'll get to him tomorrow. He's a punk. That's what he is. And I'll prove it to you tomorrow. But I'm not even going to bother with that tonight. But if I'm sitting in Washington, if I'm the president or if I'm the head of the Justice Department, I'm looking at Walz. Why? Listen to this. There is a law against rebellion in the United States. It is 18 U.S.C. Code 2383. It is a federal crime to incite, assist, or engage in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or its laws. Here's the actual wording, quote, whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, should be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be incapable of holding office under the United States. That is the law. So where are you, Kash Patel? Where are you? The FBI chief. Where? What's your plan? Nobody's going to believe ICE investigating ICE or Border Patrol investigating Border Patrol. They won't even believe the FBI. I know that. But this is a law on the books. What are you doing about it? You know what he's doing? He's waiting to be told what to do. That's what Patel's doing. You got to get it in gear, man. This has got to get under control now. Now, today, President Trump and Walz spoke. Excellent. Détente has to be reached. Temperatures down. Violence stopped. But the investigation into what is happening in Minnesota has to be transparent. What Patel should do is get his best investigators into a squad, bring them in, and look and examine the political people in Minnesota and the law enforcement people. Okay? Enough. You can't do the job, Kash, out. Get somebody who can. Okay. This all began because of President Biden. He's the source of the problem. Probably the most corrupt president as far as enforcing federal law in our history. Okay? Biden let everybody in. We're all paying the consequences. 2 people with their lives. Starts with Biden. But then the Democratic Party, the entire party, embraced the Biden madness. And that led to Walz and Fry and Minnesota. Big F you, federal government. Big F you, President Trump. No. We elected President Trump. He won. He's the president. He's the leader. You hate him? Fine. You don't defy federal law and get people killed. Now, the Democratic Party has got to stop. Okay? You got to stop playing games here. You got to unite with President Trump and the Republican Party and stamp it down. Now. This is a crisis. Not only a crisis of violence, but a constitutional crisis. We can't have anarchy and insurrection. Do we all understand that? Okay. Now, at this point, we have to start condemning people for their activities. Not, well, I understand. You've got a media that stokes the violence, wants the violence, in my opinion. Roll the tape.
So this cycle of fear and lack of experience leading to this 37-year-old ICU nurse who was clearly trying to help someone else, you can clearly see it in the video, getting, as many would argue, murdered by ICE.
And frankly, I don't know what you're investigating if you're not investigating the straight up murder. The straight up murder. This is the second one.
Well, thanks for due process. Right? Disney, I don't hold her responsible. You know what you got out there. You know what you're putting on the air every day, Disney. Iger, Burbank, California, theme parks. You know what you're doing. And you do it anyway. I don't blame her. That's who she is. Same thing with MS or whatever the hell it is. But the worst is Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. I used to respect Kelly. Listen to this.
Hey, everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. Hey, I watched that video of Minneapolis today. Probably watched it a dozen times. Pretty obvious that this man was shot dead in the street for no reason. I want to encourage people to believe what they see. Don't let this White House tell you it is something else.
Loathsome. Loathsome. Denial of due process, okay? Just like the other, okay? And this guy knows better. So, I don't know what you do. You people in Arizona, I mean, you're hearing this. Does this do any good at all? No. Whew. He's inciting it. Now, the man himself who was killed was a nurse, 37 years old. We traced him, far left guy. Doesn't have any history of criminality. Like the woman who was killed, the first one, the man shows up in an area where ICE agents are conducting raids, arrests, okay? He's armed. Got a gun on him. He gets in a physical confrontation with federal agents. He's not some kind of innocent little Bo Peep, this guy. And I hate to say this, he's dead. And he should be mourned. Nobody should be happy about that. And his family should be respected. But this guy brought upon his own demise. That's what he did. Think about it. Step back for a second. You know there's violence. One woman already dead. You show up with a concealed weapon, even if you have a permit to carry, what the deuce difference does that make? You know that you're injecting yourself into a situation that is volatile. Now, the Border Patrol agent who shot him may have made a mistake, may have even committed a crime. That's due process. But the victim walked into his own death. That's the truth. And I hate to say that. You're also hearing about ICE not having the authority to detain migrants. That is a lie. Here is the statute once again. And this comes from an article in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, illegal aliens, however, do not have the same rights as Americans. Under federal immigration law, officers may issue administrative warrant, which means that the probable cause finding is made by an executive branch officer rather than a judicial officer or judge. This is consistent with broad judicial recognition that illegal aliens are not entitled to the same Fourth Amendment protections a U.S. citizen is. It is also consistent with the Supreme Court's admonition that the touchstone of the Fourth Amendment is whether the search or seizure is reasonable, not whether it is supported by a judicial warrant. In Abel versus U.S. 1960, the justices of the Supreme Court recognize that there is overwhelming historical legislative recognition of the propriety of administrative arrests for deportable aliens. All right, that is the law. ICE is not disobeying the law. And how many times have you heard that? That's a 1960 ruling. It has not been updated, not been re-litigated. So now you have elected officials who are saying, oh, what ICE is doing is illegal. It's a lie. Finally, here's the most important part of this story. The anti-American cadres who want to overthrow this government, and they're out there now, are using Minnesota. Okay? This group is led by a man named Neville Roy Singham. He is a communist living in Shanghai, China. Is an organization called Breakthrough News, registered in the USA. Again, the main man's name is Neville Roy Singham. He's behind pushing all of these confrontations. He is using these organizations in the United States to do it. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, Democratic Socialists of America, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, Black Lives Matter chapters. They are all trying to overthrow the government of the United States. Have you heard that anywhere? Anybody report that to you? Absolute fact. They have millions of dollars. They are pumping all kinds of stuff into Minneapolis to agitate it. This is not organic, these protests. Nobody understands what's really going on. Media will not report it. I will. And that's